All right, let's dive into something really cool today. We're taking a deep dive into the 2009 Sherlock Holmes film.
Yeah.
And I know you're really into psychology and symbolism and all the sort of deeper layers of movies, so this one's going to be right up your alley.
Yeah, this film is a fascinating one to unpack. I mean, what grabs you right away is how they've taken this classic character, Sherlock Holmes, right? Everyone knows him.
Yeah.
But they present him with this super modern, action-packed visual style.
It's like Guy Ritchie, the director.
Yeah.
He took the classic Sherlock deductions and turned them into fight choreography almost.
Exactly. It's like we're seeing those deductions play out.
Yeah.
In those slow motion fight scenes, all those quick cuts and close-ups.
It's almost like we're seeing inside his mind.
Right. Traditionally, you only hear Sherlock's deductions after the fact, right? But here we get to experience his thought process, like in real time.
Yeah. It's like those lines in the books. You see, but you do not observe. In the film, you're forced to observe, to see the fight unfold through his eyes.
Yeah.
Even if we don't quite get the deductions just yet.
Exactly. And then you've got the setting itself, Victorian London, but not the romanticized version you often see. Ritchie gives us a grittier London.
Yeah, full of fog, shadows, all these amazing Gothic structures.
Yeah, really atmospheric.
And that color palette. It's like someone desaturated Victorian England.
Yeah.
You know, all those muted browns, grays, greens.
It creates this really overcast, almost oppressive atmosphere. It goes beyond just setting the mood, though. It actually reflects the psychology of the whole film.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
Remember Sherlock's famous line, "The fog is in our brains." Well, the visual fog in the film kind of mirrors that idea.
Of clouded perception.
Exactly, the struggle to see clearly amidst all the confusion and uncertainty.
So the fog isn't just visual. It's a metaphor for the mysteries.
Mm-hmm.
For the mental blocks Sherlock has to overcome.
Exactly. It's not just fog either. Notice how those muted colors make the pops of bright color stand out even more.
You mean like the red of blood?
Yeah, or like the gold of Blackwood's talisman.
That like those visual highlights are guiding our attention to crucial clues, symbolic elements.
Mm-hmm. They are. It's like the filmmakers are saying, hey, pay attention here. This is important.
I love that. Subtle but effective.
Really effective use of color symbolism. Now, shifting gears a bit, let's talk about the main conflict. Science versus the supernatural. We have Lord Blackwood dabbling in the occult, appearing to cheat death, and then we have Sherlock, all about logic and reason, trying to make sense of it all.
This is where it gets really juicy, especially with your love for psychology. How does a guy like Sherlock, who lives by deduction and evidence, approach something that seems to completely defy logic? It's like the Enlightenment battling the shadows of the Gothic.
That tension, that's what's at the heart of the film. Blackwood, with all his rituals and pronouncements, he might seem like just a villain, but he represents something much deeper, especially in the context of Victorian society.
So you're saying Blackwood's more than just a bad guy with a cool mustache?
Yeah, he's like this embodiment of the fear of the unknown, all those anxieties that rippled through Victorian society.
Because of all the massive changes happening.
Right. Industrialization, scientific discoveries like Darwin's theory, social reforms, all these things reshaping the world.
And for people used to the old ways, that's scary.
Totally. So Blackwood, with his occult stuff and claims of power, he's a symbol of the past, trying to hold back the tide.
A resistance to change, clinging to the old ways.
Exactly. And his followers, they're drawn to those promises of power, of certainty. It's like they want a world that makes sense, where the old rules still apply.
Sherlock. Where does he fit in all this? He's Mr. Rational, the champion of logic.
He is, and that's what makes it so interesting. He's almost like the embodiment of the modern scientific worldview.
Challenging those old ways.
Right. He's not afraid to question authority. Just like those Victorian advancements challenge the status quo.
So the film isn't just a mystery. It's about a clash of ideologies, a reflection of those societal tensions in Victorian England.
Yeah, it's about how people deal with change, how they react to the unknown.
Which goes right back to psychology.
Exactly. Blackwood's followers, clinging to those promises of power. They illustrate how fear and uncertainty can drive people to embrace the irrational.
Even if those answers are based on lies.
Sadly, yes. They're desperate for order in a world that feels chaotic.
And Sherlock.
He represents the courage to face that unknown, to use logic and observation, even when the answers are hard to find.
He's not driven by fear, but by that relentless pursuit of truth.
That's a key point. The film suggests that while reason might not give us all the answers, it's still our best tool for dealing with a changing world.
just like Sherlock uses deduction to unravel those mysteries.
Precisely. We need critical thinking, skepticism, to face the challenges in our lives.
Okay, so we've talked about the deeper themes.
Ah.
But I keep thinking about those amazing visuals. The whole film is steeped in mystery and suspense.
Yeah.
Do those visuals also connect to those deeper themes?
Absolutely. They're not just decoration. They're intertwined with the narrative and the psychological exploration of the characters.
Like how?
Take those dark, foggy streets. They're not just a backdrop. They embody the uncertainty and danger.
Oh, I see.
That fog obscures vision, literally and metaphorically. It reflects the characters struggling to see clearly amidst all the deception.
Okay, I'm with you.
And that muted color palette, all those grays and browns.
It's beautiful, but it also creates this sense of unease.
It does, like something's not quite right.
Exactly.
That desaturated palette reinforces the mystery, the feeling that secrets are lurking beneath the surface.
It's almost like the world itself is holding its breath, waiting for Sherlock to illuminate the darkness with his deductions.
That's a great way to put it.
And when those pops of color do appear, like when Sherlock finds that blood-soaked handkerchief.
Yeah, and the red just jumps out against that muted background.
It's like a visual exclamation point, drawing attention to that key piece of evidence.
Exactly. Those moments of color, they're visual cues, highlighting important details or symbolic elements.
Like those moments are the filmmakers winking at us saying, hey, pay attention, this is important.
They are. And it makes you appreciate the artistry involved in crafting a film like this.
It really does. It's not just about the story.
Right. It's a carefully crafted visual experience designed to evoke emotion and make you think.
It's like a whole other layer of storytelling.
Exactly. Every element is carefully chosen. The lighting, set design, costumes, all of it contributes to creating this world.
This world that feels both familiar and unsettling.
Right. Reflecting the complexities of the Victorian era and the human psyche.
Now, I'm thinking about all the metaphorical aspects of the film. I know you love to dig into that stuff. Can you walk us through how the film acts as a commentary on those societal anxieties of the Victorian era?
That's a great question, and it takes us to one of the most fascinating parts of this film. Its ability to work on multiple levels. On the surface, it's this thrilling detective story. But underneath that, it's grappling with these big anxieties about societal change, the clash between tradition and modernity, and the tension between faith and reason.
So it's not just about solving a crime.
It's about understanding the forces that shape our world and the choices we make when facing those forces. It's about the struggle to find meaning and truth in a world that can feel chaotic and uncertain.
Wow, that's deep.
And this is where the film's exploration of symbolism and metaphor becomes really crucial. Remember how we talked about Blackwood as a representation of the fear of the unknown? Well, he's not the only one. Even Sherlock, with all his logic and reason, he has moments of doubt and vulnerability.
You mean like his struggles with boredom?
Yeah, or his occasional reliance on drugs. It suggests that even the most brilliant minds can feel the pressure of a rapidly changing world.
So even Mr. Rationality isn't immune to the psychological complexities.
Exactly. And that speaks to the film's nuanced approach. It's not just celebrating logic and reason, it also acknowledges the human cost of progress.
The anxieties and uncertainties that come with change.
Right, and that's where the symbolism and metaphor get even more profound. Consider the recurring motif of fire, for example.
Fire? I remember the explosions and burning buildings, but how does that tie into the deeper meaning?
Well, fire is often linked to destruction, but it can also symbolize purification, transformation.
Okay.
In Sherlock Holmes, it represents both.
Makes sense.
On the one hand, it's destructive, symbolizing the chaos and violence threatening Victorian society. But on the other hand, it's transformative, representing the potential for change and renewal.
So the fire, like the fog and darkness, it's a multi-layered symbol.
It reflects both the anxieties and the possibilities of the era.
It's a reminder that change can be both destructive and creative.
Exactly. And that duality is at the core of the film's exploration of the human condition.
We're capable of logic and irrationality.
Of creation and destruction. Sherlock Holmes invites us to face those complexities, to embrace the unknown.
And to seek meaning in a constantly evolving world.
Precisely.
It's amazing how they do all of that,
Right.
while still delivering a thrilling, visually stunning film.
It is. They took this classic story and injected it with all these deeper layers of meaning.
Reflections on the human psyche and the forces that shape us.
It's a testament to the power of storytelling.
And how a film can entertain, while also challenging us to think critically.
And that's where your interest in psychology comes in again.
Oh, yeah. The film isn't just about solving a mystery.
It's about exploring the complexities of human behavior, how we react to fear and uncertainty, and the choices we make in the face of change.
It's like a case study on the human mind.
In a way, yes. And that exploration is woven throughout the film. From the subtle nuances of the character interactions to the visual language that evokes unease and intrigue. Think about the recurring motif of masks and disguises, for example.
Masks. Yeah, I remember several characters wearing masks or disguising themselves. How does that tie into the psychological themes?
Well, masks and disguises symbolize how we hide our true selves, the facades we present to the world, either to protect ourselves or manipulate others.
Like putting on a brave face when you're feeling scared.
Exactly. And in Sherlock Holmes, it reflects the struggles with identity and deception. Even Holmes, with his logic and reason, he's a master of disguise and manipulation.
So even he plays the game.
He does. It suggests that everyone has secrets. Everyone wears a mask to some degree.
It goes back to that idea of clouded perception, struggling to see clearly in a world of facades and illusions.
That's a great point. It underscores the theme of hidden truths. The complexities beneath the surface.
Things aren't always what they seem.
Exactly. Even those we think we know can surprise us.
And that connects back to the detective as a symbol of uncovering truth.
Peeling back the layers of deception to reveal what's underneath.
Like Sherlock's our guide through this world of illusions.
He is. He helps us to see past the masks and find the truth.
It's a powerful way to think about it.
The detective becomes a figure of enlightenment, a symbol of our own desire to understand ourselves and the world.
And Sherlock Holmes takes us on that journey.
With its blend of mystery, action, and psychological depth.
It's a thrilling and thought-provoking ride. Now, I have to ask, for someone who loves this film and wants to explore these themes further, are there other films you'd recommend? Ones that capture that same mix of mystery, psychology, and visual storytelling?
Absolutely. If you're into the blend of mystery and the occult in a historical setting, you might enjoy From Hell.
Oh, I've seen that one. It's about Jack the Ripper, right?
Yeah, set in Victorian London. The atmosphere is incredibly thick with suspense, and it explores those themes of hidden truths, societal anxieties, and the clash between reason and superstition.
I love the visuals in that one.
They are stunning, and the way it weaves historical details into the mystery, it's really captivating.
Agreed.
And if you're drawn to the psychology of brilliant minds, I'd recommend The Prestige. It's about two rival magicians and their world of illusion and deception.
The Prestige. Such a great film.
It is. It keeps you guessing until the very end and really digs into the dark side of ambition.
The lengths people will go to for their goals.
Exactly. Both of those films offer unique perspective on similar themes, and they both use visual storytelling in really powerful ways.
This is why I love film analysis. It's like peeling back the layers of an onion, discovering something new each time you watch.
What's so rewarding?
Especially when you connect those insights to your own interests.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of art. It invites us to find personal meaning in its complexities.
And Sherlock Holmes is a prime example.
With its rich tapestry of themes, symbolism, and visual storytelling, it rewards that deeper exploration.
Now, before we go too deep down that rabbit hole, let's focus on the allegorical aspects of Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah, let's explore how it can be interpreted as a commentary on those societal anxieties of the Victorian era.
I'm ready to go deeper. What makes Sherlock Holmes more than just a detective story?
Well, remember how we discussed the clash between science and the supernatural? Think about how Lord Blackwood, with his rituals and claims of magic, he represents something more than just a villain. He becomes a symbol of the fear of the unknown, that resistance to change that was everywhere during the Victorian era.
So he represents clinging to tradition, fear of progress.
Exactly. It adds a whole other layer to the film. On the surface, it's this exciting detective story, but underneath, it's grappling with these bigger ideas about societal shifts and the anxieties they create.
And where does Holmes, the ultimate rationalist, fit into that?
Holmes, with his unwavering belief in logic and deduction, he becomes a symbol of modernity, of embracing new ways of thinking. He challenges those old ways, the superstitions, just like those Victorian advancements challenged traditional beliefs.
It's like the film is saying that to progress.
Oh.
We need to embrace logic, reason, evidence-based thinking.
Exactly. It's not about forgetting the past, but approaching it critically, using reason to understand the world around us.
Just like Holmes uses a deduction to solve mysteries.
Right. Society needs logic and reason to navigate the complexities of progress.
And this brings us back to psychology.
How people process change, how they react to the unknown.
It's fascinating.
It is. The film taps into those human anxieties,
Yeah.
showing how fear and superstition can cloud our judgment.
Like Blackwood's followers?
Exactly. They're easily manipulated because they crave certainty, something Blackwood offers through his supposed powers.
They'll believe anything that provides order in a chaotic world.
That's right. And Holmes represents the opposing force, the one who challenges those easy answers and seeks truth through observation and deduction.
He's a reminder that even when facing the unknown, logic and reason can be our most powerful tools.
Absolutely. Now, what about those visual motifs in the symbolism? How do those contribute to these deeper themes?
Good question.
Remember those dark, foggy streets? They're not just a backdrop. They represent the uncertainty and danger in the story.
And that muted color palette.
It reinforces the mystery, the sense of hidden truths waiting to be uncovered.
And those pops of vibrant color we talked about.
They act as visual cues, highlighting important evidence or moments of revelation.
It's like the filmmakers are saying, pay attention, this is important.
Precisely. So we have this visual language working alongside the narrative, adding layers of meaning and symbolism.
It's like a whole other dimension to the storytelling.
Exactly. And what's so rewarding is how all these elements work together, the visuals, the characters, the themes, to create this rich, multi-layered experience.
Sherlock Holmes isn't just a fun action movie.
It's a film that makes you think and question and engage with the complexities of the world.
It's like we're playing detective alongside Holmes.
Trying to piece together the bigger picture.
That's a great way to think about it.
And that brings us back to our listener and their interest in these deeper levels of meaning. The beauty of Sherlock Holmes is that it works on multiple levels. You can enjoy it as a thrilling mystery, but you can also dig deeper and find all these fascinating layers of symbolism and social commentary.
So, what should someone who wants to unpack this film pay attention to on a rewatch?
Look for those recurring visual motifs we talked about. The fog, the darkness, those flashes of color. They're not just random choices. They're deliberate elements designed to enhance the storytelling.
It's like a visual treasure hunt.
It is. Pay attention to how characters are framed in the shots. Their costumes, the objects they use. Those can be clues to their inner lives and motivations.
I'll be looking for all that.
And don't forget about the dialogue. The film is filled with witty lines and wordplay, but there are also moments where the words hint at deeper truths or foreshadow what's to come.
So we're talking visuals, dialogue, symbolism. It's like learning a whole new language.
It is. It's a cinematic language. And the more you learn it, the more you can appreciate the art of filmmaking.
Now, before we wrap up, could you leave our listener with one final thought-provoking question? Something to ponder after this deep dive.
Certainly. Throughout our conversation, we've seen how Sherlock Holmes relies on logic and reason to solve mysteries and face the unknown. But could this unwavering faith and rationality also be his weakness? Does it blind him to certain truths? To the possibility of something beyond his logical understanding? Something for you to consider as you revisit the film.
Ooh, that's a good one. It gets to the core of who Sherlock Holmes is.
And it speaks to the larger human experience. Our capacity for reason is what sets us apart. But it can also limit our understanding of the world. Sometimes the greatest mysteries lie beyond logic.
Well, I think we've given our listener plenty to think about today. This deep dive into Sherlock Holmes has been fantastic.
It has.
Exploring those deeper themes, the symbolism, the social commentary, and those amazing visuals.
It's been a pleasure discussing all this with you.
Likewise. And to our listener, we hope this deep dive has given you a new appreciation for Sherlock Holmes. Go back and watch it again. Pay attention to the things we talked about and see what you discover. There's a whole world of meaning waiting to be uncovered.
Absolutely. It's about how those visuals connect to the allegorical aspects. Remember we were talking about how the film kind of acts as this commentary on the societal anxieties of the Victorian era?
Right. Like how those anxieties play out visually.
Exactly. It's not just about what we see, it's about what it represents.
So let's break that down a bit.
Okay, so think about the film's central mystery, Lord Blackwood and his apparent ability to cheat death. It taps into this deep-seated fear of the unknown that was really prevalent in Victorian society.
Because of all the rapid changes happening at the time.
Exactly. The world was transforming at an unprecedented pace. With advancements in science, technology, social structures, it was unsettling for a lot of people.
So Blackwood's like a symbol of those anxieties.
He is. He embodies the resistance to change, the clinging to old traditions and beliefs in the face of a rapidly modernizing world.
And his followers. those who are drawn to his promises of power.
They represent the segment of society that was struggling to adapt to these changes, yearning for a simpler time, when the world seemed to make more sense.
And Sherlock, with his embrace of logic and deduction.
He's like the antithesis of Blackwood.
The champion of the new, the scientific.
Precisely. He represents the progressive forces of the era, those who are embracing change, and using reason to navigate the complexities of a modernizing world.
It's like the film is pitting these two forces against each other.
It is. It's a battle between tradition and modernity, faith and reason, superstition and scientific inquiry.
And it all plays out against this backdrop of a visually stunning, atmospheric Victorian London.
Exactly. The visuals aren't just there for show. They're actively contributing to the storytelling, reinforcing those deeper themes.
Like how? Give me some examples.
Okay, think about those dark, foggy streets. They're not just setting the scene. They're a visual representation of the uncertainty, the obscured truth, the dangers lurking in the shadows.
The fog is like a metaphor for the mysteries themselves.
It is. It creates a sense of unease, of not being able to see clearly, which mirrors the character's own struggles to discern truth from deception.
And that muted color palette you mentioned earlier.
All those grays, browns, dark greens, they contribute to that feeling of mystery, of secrets hidden beneath the surface.
It's like the world itself is holding its breath,
waiting for Sherlock to come along with his deductions and shed light on the truth.
And when those pops of vibrant color do appear,
like the red of blood or the gold of Blackwood's talisman,
they really grab your attention.
They do. They're like visual cues, highlighting key pieces of evidence or symbolic elements.
It's almost like the filmmakers are saying, hey, pay attention to this. It's important.
Precisely. They're using color to guide our focus. To emphasize certain aspects of the story.
It's a subtle but really effective technique.
It is. It adds another layer of depth to the storytelling.
Okay, so we've got these visual metaphors, this clash of ideologies. But what about the characters themselves? Do they also function as symbols in this allegorical reading of the film?
Absolutely. They're not just individuals. They embody certain ideas and anxieties that were prevalent during the Victorian era.
Like Blackwood representing the fear of change.
Exactly. He's clinging to the old ways, resisting the tide of progress. And his followers are drawn to his promises because they long for a simpler time.
A time before all these unsettling changes.
Precisely. They represent the segment of society that was struggling to adapt, to make sense of a world that felt increasingly complex.
And Sherlock, with his sharp mind and scientific approach.
He represents the opposite, the embrace of logic and reason, the belief in progress and the power of human intellect to solve problems and uncover truth.
It's like he's the hero of the Enlightenment.
In a way, he is. He embodies the spirit of inquiry, the courage to challenge the status quo and to use observation and deduction to understand the world around him.
It's a fascinating contrast.
It is, and it highlights the central conflict of the film, that tension between tradition and modernity, between faith and reason, between clinging to the past and embracing the future.
And the film doesn't offer any easy answers, does it?
It doesn't. It presents a nuanced view of both sides, acknowledging the anxieties and the opportunities that come with societal change.
It's like the film is saying that this tension is an inherent part of the human experience.
Exactly. We're constantly grappling with these forces, the pull of the past, the allure of the future, the need for stability, the desire for progress.
And Sherlock Holmes captures that struggle in a way that's both visually stunning and intellectually stimulating.
It does, and it invites us to engage with these ideas, to think critically about the world around us, and to consider the choices we make in the face of change.
That's what makes it more than just a detective story.
It's a film that speaks to something deeper, something about the human condition, our relationship with the past, our anxieties about the future, and our ongoing quest for meaning and truth.
It's like a philosophical puzzle wrapped in a thrilling action mystery.
It is, and that's why it continues to resonate with audiences, even years after its release.
Okay, so we've talked about the visual metaphors, the allegorical characters, the clash of ideologies, the psychological depth. Is there anything else we should be paying attention to when we watch this film through this allegorical lens?
Well, one thing that's really interesting to consider is the film's use of humor.
Humor. Yeah, there are definitely some funny moments, but how does that connect to the deeper themes?
Well, the humor often serves to highlight the absurdity of some of the situations and beliefs presented in the film.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
For example, think about the scene where Sherlock is explaining his deductions about Blackwood's plan, And Watson is completely baffled by his logic.
Yeah, it's funny because Watson is so grounded in reality.
Exactly. And the humor in that scene underscores the contrast between Sherlock's unconventional way of thinking and the more traditional views represented by Watson.
It's like the film is poking fun at those who are resistant to new ideas.
In a way, yes. It's using humor to point out the limitations of clinging to outdated beliefs in the face of evidence and reason.
So the humor is actually a subtle form of social commentary.
It is. It's a way of critiquing the rigidity of traditional thinking and advocating for a more open-minded scientific approach to the world.
It's like the film is saying, don't be afraid to question the old ways, embrace the new.
Exactly. And it does so with a wink and a smile, making the message both entertaining and thought-provoking.
I love how this film manages to be so multi-layered.
It's a testament to the skill of the filmmakers to craft a story that works on so many levels.
It's a visual feast, an intellectual puzzle, and a commentary on the human condition.
All wrapped up in one thrilling package.
Sherlock Holmes truly is a cinematic masterpiece.
It is, and it's a film that deserves to be watched and rewatched with a curious eye, always seeking those hidden meanings and connections.
Now, I can't help but think about our listener and their interest in psychology and symbolism. What are some key takeaways for them as they delve deeper into Sherlock Holmes?
Well, one key takeaway is that the film offers a fascinating exploration of the human psyche, particularly in times of rapid change and uncertainty.
How so?
It shows how fear and anxiety can drive people to embrace irrational beliefs, and how those in power can exploit those fears for their own gain.
Like Blackwood manipulating his followers.
Exactly. But the film also offers a counterpoint to that, in the form of Sherlock Holmes.
The voice of reason and logic.
He represents the power of critical thinking.
Yeah.
To see through deception and uncover truth.
It's like the film is encouraging us to be more like Sherlock.
To question authority, to examine evidence, and to use our intellect to navigate the complexities of the world.
That's a powerful message.
It is, and it's one that's particularly relevant today, in a world that's often filled with misinformation and manipulation.
We need to be critical thinkers more than ever.
Absolutely. We need to be able to discern truth from falsehood, to see through the smoke and mirrors, and to make informed decisions based on evidence and reason.
Just like Sherlock Holmes.
Precisely. He's a role model for the modern age, a champion of intellect and integrity.
Now, before we move on, I want to touch on something we discussed earlier. The idea that the film works on multiple levels.
Right. It's not just a straightforward detective story. It's also a commentary on society, on the human condition, and on the nature of truth itself.
And one of the ways it achieves this is through its rich visual language.
Absolutely. The visuals are more than just decoration. They're integral to the storytelling, conveying meaning and symbolism.
Like the fog, the darkness, those pops of color.
Exactly. They're all carefully chosen to reinforce the themes and create a specific atmosphere.
It's like a visual symphony.
It is. And it's one of the things that makes Sherlock Holmes so visually captivating.
And so rewarding to rewatch.
Precisely. Because each time you watch it, you notice new details, new layers of meaning that you might have missed before.
It's like peeling back the layers of an onion.
It is. And that's what makes film analysis so fascinating. There's always more to discover.
Now, for someone who's watching Sherlock Holmes, with all these insights in mind, what are some specific things they should be looking for?
Well, one thing to pay attention to is the use of framing, how characters are positioned within the shots, and how that relates to their power dynamics.
Okay, so like if a character is framed lower in the shot.
It might suggest that they're in a position of weakness or subservience.
Interesting. What else?
Another thing to look for is the use of symbolism. The film is full of symbolic objects and imagery that convey deeper meanings.
Like the recurring motif of fire.
Exactly. Fire can represent destruction, but it can also symbolize purification and transformation.
So we need to think about the context to understand the intended meaning.
Precisely. And don't forget about the dialogue. The film is filled with witty exchanges and clever wordplay, but there are also moments where the words hint at deeper truths or foreshadow future events.
So we need to pay close attention to both what's being said and how it's being said.
Exactly. It's all part of the puzzle.
This is why I love film analysis. It's like being a detective in your own right.
It is. And Sherlock Holmes is a perfect film for that, because it's so rich with detail and symbolism.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. We've talked about the visual metaphors, the allegorical characters, the clash of ideologies, the psychological depth, the humor, the symbolism. I think our listener has a lot to chew on.
I agree. It's been a really stimulating discussion.
It has. Now, before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to touch on one more aspect of the film that connects to our listeners' interest in psychology.
Okay, I'm listening.
It's the theme of identity. How the characters in Sherlock Holmes are constantly grappling with who they are.
That's a great point. Identity is a central theme, and it's explored in a variety of ways.
Can you give us some examples?
Well, one way is through the use of disguises. Many of the characters in the film wear masks or adopt different personas to conceal their true selves.
Like Sherlock himself.
Exactly. He's a master of disguise, and he uses it to gain access to information and to manipulate those around him.
It's like he's constantly playing a role.
He is. And that raises questions about the nature of identity and the extent to which we construct our own personas.
It's like the film is saying that we're all actors.
In a sense, yes. We all present different versions of ourselves, depending on the situation and the people we're with.
So the theme of identity ties into that idea of deception.
Absolutely. The film is full of secrets and hidden agendas, and the characters are constantly trying to figure out who they can trust.
And who they can't.
Exactly. It's a world of smoke and mirrors, where nothing is quite what it seems.
And that makes it all the more intriguing.
It does. It keeps you guessing until the very end.
And it invites us to think critically about the nature of truth.
And about our own roles in constructing and perceiving reality.
This deep dive into Sherlock Holmes has been a real eye-opener.
It has. It's a film that rewards close attention and thoughtful analysis.
And it's a film that speaks to our deepest fears.
And our highest aspirations.
I can't wait to watch it again with all these new insights in mind.
I'm sure you'll discover even more layers of meaning.
On that note, I think it's time to wrap up this part of our deep dive into Sherlock Holmes.
It's been a pleasure exploring these ideas with you.
Likewise. And to our listener, we hope you've enjoyed this journey into the heart of a cinematic masterpiece.
It's not just presenting those ideas, it's like prompting us to think about them. The film doesn't give us a simple answer about whether clinging to tradition or embracing progress is the right way. Instead, it shows us a complex view of both, acknowledging the anxieties and the opportunities that are a part of each.
So it's saying that this tension between the old and the new, between logic and faith, it's just part of being human.
Exactly. And that brings up a question that I think the film is asking, and it's especially relevant to someone interested in psychology. Can our reliance on logic, that need to rationalize everything, sometimes keep us from seeing other truths, other ways of understanding the world?
You're saying that even Sherlock, with all his brilliance, might be limited by his insistence on logic.
Yeah, it's a thought-provoking idea. And it reminds me of something we talked about earlier, those moments of surrealism in the film, those flashes of imagery that don't seem logical or rational.
Oh, right, like those dreamlike sequences of Blackwood's rituals, or those strange symbols that pop up throughout the film.
Exactly, those moments of visual disruption. They suggest that there might be things going on that we just don't understand.
Like there are limits to what we can perceive.
Right. Even the smartest people can't always grasp the full complexity of reality.
So that final question you mentioned.
Could Sherlock's unwavering faith in logic and reason be his greatest weakness? Does it stop him from fully engaging with mysteries that go beyond rational explanation?
Wow, that's a great question to end on. It really makes you think about the limitations of our own perspectives.
And the possibility that there's more to the world than we can see, even for someone as sharp as Sherlock Holmes.
This has been an incredible deep dive into Sherlock Holmes. We have explored those deeper themes, the symbolism, the social commentary, and those fantastic visuals.
It's been a real pleasure discussing all this with you.
Likewise. And to our listener, we hope this deep dive has given you a new appreciation for the depth and richness of Sherlock Holmes.
Definitely go back and watch it again. Pay attention to those details we talked about and see what new things you discover.
I know I will. And maybe this deep dive will inspire you to explore other films with the same curious eye, to look for those hidden meanings and connections.
There's a whole world of cinema out there waiting to be explored.
That's so true. And on that note, I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive. We've covered so much ground today, from the symbolism to the psychological layers to the societal anxieties that make this film so thought-provoking.
It's been a joy to unpack all of this with you.
The pleasure was all mine. And to our listeners, thank you for joining us on this journey into the brilliant and enigmatic world of Sherlock Holmes. Until next time, happy watching.